Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. This is Annika Jackson with Your Brand Amplified, and I am over the moon excited to have a publicist on the show, Lindsey Habenicht, founder and CEO of Good Press. I was telling Lindsey right before we started that I originally started this podcast to talk to other publicists, and then it evolved into much more. But I always get excited when I have somebody who wants to come on the show as a publicist themselves, and they're not just pitching me their clients. So Lindsey, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. You know, it's fun to pitch clients, but it's good to get your own good press out there and talk about what PR is all about for the people that are listening to the podcast.
Yes. Well, and I'd love to talk a little bit about your journey because I feel like you're very heart-centered and we have a lot in common. You've worked for nonprofits, you're executive director for a food bank, and then you went back to PR. So will you talk about that journey and the evolution?
Yeah, it's been a really full journey, but I think it's something that a lot of people can resonate with because as unconventional as it may be, it's one of those things where everything leads back to center. And you said it perfectly. It's heart-centered business for me. So when I was in college, I was set on doing political advertising. And I thought that politics was where the moving and the shaking was happening, and I needed to be a part of it. And so I went to Georgetown for grad school, got my master's in PR, but put myself through school by working at a public affairs agency. And it was an amazing opportunity, one of the top in DC. I had the opportunity to work with Fortune 500 companies, global nonprofits, even did my bit on a presidential campaign. And somehow through all of that, I still was not feeling like it was the right fit for me. Like I couldn't connect to the impact. It was just a little bit too big. And so I packed up my things when school was out and I moved back home. In the weirdest twist and turn, I got a call from my high school principal many years out saying, hey, we have an emergency opening and we need someone to teach marketing in about 4 weeks. Will you do it? And feeling like I had just, thrown my dreams away by leaving DC, I said yes. I didn't have anything to lose. And I found this real heart for education. I loved my job teaching. It was the most fulfilling, but I didn't get to do the marketing. I was teaching marketing, but I didn't do it. And that was really tough for me. So I pitched my marketing services to our local food bank. And I said, hey, I'm working full time, but I have a real passion for what you do. I would love to do events and marketing for you. They were going through a little bit of a rebrand. There was a real opportunity to get engaged. And they said yes. Forward, I ended up getting the opportunity to lead that organization as the executive director for 3.5 years. And it was the privilege of my life. I think it will always be the honor of my life to get to serve in such a hands-on role where you can see the impact that you're making every single day. But what ultimately led me to Good Press is, and I'm sure that people can relate to this, I was so in the business of the food bank that I lost the heart. So I started imagining what would it look like to build an agency that put my heart for education, my knack for philanthropy, my past in marketing all together, and Good Press was born.
Awesome. I'm also a teacher. I also do a lot of nonprofit. And I also love to work with heart-centered and businesses that, even if they're for-profit, have a social change element. So I'm super excited because this is, for listening or watching, this is the first time Lindsey and I are actually meeting. I don't do the pre-interview thing, but I know now we're going to stay connected because there's so many things that we can do. Yeah. So let's talk about Good Press because you just started this last year. You transitioned from the executive director position. Was it scary to leave that steadiness of the paycheck and step out on your own?
There's always a risk. I think that I needed something to push me to take the jump. And I'm sure people felt the burnout that came with the pandemic and the roles that people had been sitting in. And so it gave me a lot of time to get creative and think about, how do I make this a reality? The imposter syndrome, the fear, all of it is very real. They're not just buzzwords. They're real feelings that I had to overcome. But I think getting to have agency over the impact that you make in the world is such a beautiful thing. So the benefit outweighs the fear for sure.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about what you do. Who are your client? I'm imagining an image in my head, but I'd love to hear from your mouth.
Yeah. My personal mission is to help brands, influencers, change makers do good for good, right? Like, it's simple as that. How do I help people do good for good? And the PR piece comes in where it's, how do we elevate that impact and give people a platform to do good? But I can work, and I love to work with anyone that has a heart-centered story. Yeah. And I think it's just getting back into the nitty-gritty of why you started. So I've worked with gym owners, with candle makers, with coaches, counselors, authors. No matter what the industry is that you're in, you're my ideal client because I want to see you share your why. I want to see you dig deep into the meaning. Right now, I have the opportunity to work with a home builder. And, on the outside, we want to make people feel at home. But it's, what did you lack in your home when you were growing up? What's the story, your upbringing? And it's been this beautiful metamorphosis of bringing a story to life that good work is so woven into what she's going to bring to her clients now. It's the most beautiful opportunity. So it's hard to answer because I know I should have, that ideal client, but I really want to say, like, if you have heart for what you do, you need good press.
Yeah.
It helps you stay centered.
Yeah. Well, and pulling those stories out of people when sometimes they might be reluctant to. Do you find that most of your clients are willing to share their stories? Because this is something I talk about all the time when we're talking about branding, or we're talking about digital advertising, or different aspects with guests on the podcast. Is like, how do you make sure that people want, like, that they feel comfortable sharing their story, and what parts of their story they're storing?
I would say I'm not your average publicist because I refuse to tell the story without having that impact coaching system. So I decided it would be worth my while to go and get a life coaching certificate. I spent about a year in a life and success coaching program because I wanted to learn how to ask those questions, how to get people to come to their own conclusions. And I wanted to be able to lead conversations in a really meaningful way. So I did that first. I did that before I started this agency because I knew that I wanted to do PR differently. Yeah. So every client that signs on with Good Press has to go through 3 sessions, about an hour each, of impact coaching. And I would say most people are reluctant to share their story in that first session, right? It's hard to dig deep and talk about why, because like I said, with my own journey, you've been in the business for so long, you might not even know why anymore.
Right. Exactly.
Or be able to see the trees beneath the forest, or among the forest, right? And so we work through that impact coaching session where my time is just dedicated to letting you speak and letting you reflect and talking about the things that maybe haven't come up in your story in a while. And that's how we build a story that is meaningful. That's how we weave that impact into every piece. Because it's hard to get people to talk about it at first, but 3 sessions in, there's not enough time.
Well, and what do you say? Because I know I've had the experience sometimes where somebody wants to start their press immediately and they feel like they really know who they are and their brand and their story. And I'm always reluctant. And honestly, when I do take those clients, it's always been a mistake. I'm always like, oh gosh, no, because I like to have a process. It's not the same as yours, but I want to make sure that they know their story, their narrative, and their brand inside and out. Because I feel like so many times people are like, I'm ready for PR. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Are you? How long have you been in business? Do you have your story? Have you been, what are you going to share?
Yeah, I echo that. And I think it's hard because people are so passionate about the work that they're doing. They wouldn't be doing it otherwise. But that doesn't mean that it translates to everyone else, right? Like, you can't know how other people are going to perceive or hear your story when you've been telling it for so long. Of course, it makes sense to you. But in order to translate that meaning on a much deeper level, it is tough. And my answer is just no. Respectfully, no. Because that press too, we talk about this often in impact coaching, but good press shouldn't be about like one thing that you do well, right? It shouldn't be this one-off thing that you're trying to get good press for. It is your brand story. It is woven through everything you do and can be seen and felt and heard at every touch point where someone might interact with your brand. And if it's not there yet, then they're not ready for PR.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you let them know that this is not the time. They might have some work to do, and maybe they'll go find somebody else who will take their money, but they might be disappointed because they haven't done the work.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does life look like for you right now and day to day? What kinds of projects are you working on? And, because some people think that as publicists, you just send out press releases. Some people think you're just sending emails, or I think people are still a little mystified about what the process is for PR.
Right. I think it's funny because PR is one of those things that it's the most out there. It's the most present. You can see it everywhere, but nobody knows what it is. And so not all good press, or not all press is good press. But my day-to-day is a lot of relationship building. I think that that's what makes impact coaching or impact focused PR so different, is it's taking your really traditional communications planning, but pairing it with the relationship building that is so necessary to build trust in order to get the best story possible. So my days often look like content creation, repurposing that content across multiple platforms for my clients. But I spend a lot of time in one-on-one calls, coaching in anticipation for any thought leadership opportunities that they have, any placements that they might have, any events that they could be hosting, so that we can activate their brand in a really meaningful way. And then we do work with our brands or our businesses to do impact partnerships. And so I'm spending a lot of time lately building relationships with nonprofits in my area, those cause-related campaigns that my clients might be able to attach on to in order to tell them the better story, the greater story. So I wouldn't say any day is the same. Every day is different, but it's a lot of relationship building and a lot of storytelling.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I'd love to, if you don't mind, sharing a client or two and how you helped them in their evolution of, their brand to get good press.
Yeah, I'll speak to one specifically because it was my first client actually testing this good press process. And I think that I learned a lot about my process working with this client, but it also, to date, is the most impressive story that I think we've come to create together. So I worked with a candle maker. I think I mentioned that earlier, called Course and Cole. And she was, like most of us, a corporate, cog in the machine. She was doing web design. She was doing what she thought was her entrepreneurial journey. She was working for herself and doing lots of corporate clients, didn't love her job.
Right.
And the pandemic really took a toll on a lot of people to say, hey, what do I actually care about? Because my job is not filling me up. I'm not the best mom. I'm not the best partner. I'm not the best friend. I feel empty on every level. And it's hard to have those conversations because somebody's in business working on something they built, and yet they feel so unfulfilled. And so she had started making candles just as a hobby, just for fun. And eventually it kind of caught wind in her community. People loved what she was doing. And I looked at it and I thought, gosh, there is something so much more meaningful than candles here. Like, this isn't about selling a candle at all. It's about a much deeper story. So she and I got to talking, and we did that impact coaching. And within the first session, she dug all the way back to her childhood. And she was telling me this story of a time that she and a friend got on their horses. She loves horses. And they took them out into the woods. And it was the last time that she had felt free, was running down the road with her horse. The horse leads her to this lake. They play in the lake together. She's a kid, but it's this big memory of like, that was the last time I felt free. And we started talking about this concept of free. And she said, I just want to find my flame. And this brand was built around her candles that was find your flame. And so every time now that people are lighting a candle, they're going through this meditative process of creating space for themselves, finding their flame, like coming back to center. And it's not about selling a candle at all, right? It's about selling this experience of like, you were made for more, you deserve more, you can sense that freedom again, you can have joy again, and you can be a better mom, partner, friend, etc. And so getting to tell that story without ever talking about selling candles has been, I think, just the biggest nod to, wow, impact PR, there's a real need for it. It's so unique. And I think because that was my first opportunity to see like, how is doing good for business? What does that look like? and seeing the impact that that's had on so many women who have now purchased her candles, become loyal followers and fans of what she does, is just so beautiful. So that's just one example that I think speaks to the importance of impact PR as opposed to just telling a story for the sake of telling a story.
Yeah. Oh, well, and when we're done, you're going to have to send me the link.
Yeah, well,
those candles, because I'm like, wow, I need to send this to all my girlfriends. Yeah. That deeply resonates. And I love that approach. And I love the fact that it is weaving this story that doesn't just tie back to her childhood, because we can all put ourselves in those shoes of when did we feel free? When did we feel like we were really living authentically and had that time? And so I love that you're giving this gift to your clients too, of helping them kind of unlock these boxes or these memories that are helping them create the change that they want to see.
Right. And I think it just leads to much more fulfilling entrepreneurship, right? Like when people are sitting in their purpose and doing what they are meant to be doing and feeling good about it, there's no greater gift. So it really is such an honor.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the trends? Because I know you've talked a little bit about the local angle and coming up with local partnerships. Yes. So do you primarily work with local businesses? Are you working with national businesses and trying to find those national partnerships as well?
Yeah, I think the greatest thing about PR is there is no real immediate scope of influence. It can be global, right? So I am really on a mission to help as many businesses connect with as many organizations to make as big of an impact as possible, regardless of what that looks like. I think to answer your question about trends, obviously local influence is huge, but I just think that impact at large is, it's not even so much like a moral obligation as it is a strategic one at this point. Of course, there's heart behind it, but consumers are looking for that authenticity. And I think that this goes hand in hand with like trends include AI. Trends include automated technology that is losing a lot of personalization because people are so quick to hop on it without teaching it how to speak like their unique brand. And so I think those two things go hand in hand, where we have to recognize that there's a real call for authenticity. Every report I'm reading is saying that consumers are leaning towards brands that have showcased at least some commitment to something that they care about, right? More than every time. And so impact is a huge piece of PR on a local and a national level. And then as AI is trending, I think there's a real need to make sure that we're still using our authentic voice. We're telling our unique story. And as we use those tools, and that's what they are, they're tools, not replacements, we're teaching them how to use our brand voice so that if anything, we can use it to leverage our impact and our reach.
Mm-hmm. So knowing that there are so many things that people can do in the world of PR, tools to use, but you need to make sure that you're weaving in your authentic voice and your brand narrative, sharing stories maybe on a localized level, but also thinking about how you can spread influence to national and global. What are some strategies that anybody listening right now could utilize today? If they have, I agree with you that I think you have to have some kind of heart, you have to have some kind of impact as part of your mission and part of what you offer. But we also know that some bigger companies might say that on their website, but they aren't really enacting those values in life or with their employees. So if somebody is building a business and they are like, oh, I know I need to do this, I have some ideas, but I'm not quite sure where to go, what would you say to them?
Yeah, we have created a social impact playbook that is just chock full with answers to all of those questions. I think that for a lot of people, it is just figuring out where to start. And then once you know where to start, how do you make it matter, right? Like there's so much clutter and everyone is talking about something. So where do you begin? And our social impact playbook walks through a pretty in-depth brainstorming process that isn't meant to create more work for these even large corporations. It's just meant to say what's already aligned with the work that you're doing, right? Like what already matters that we can elevate that story as opposed to maybe something else. But the main piece of the playbook is what's called the sail test. I don't know if you're familiar with the quote, ships are safer in the harbor, but that's not what ships are for.
Right.
That has always really resonated with me. And I wanted to apply that to business and say, businesses are safer selling what they sell, but there is always so much more. And so we created something called the sail test. And we're saying, let's take sail, right? Like, let's get our businesses to do more, be more, make more meaning. And the sail test, which is in this resource, the PR playbook, basically asks 4 questions. And it says, S, is this supportive? Is the thing that you're thinking about doing already being done or supported by other experts? Are there people that you can partner with? You don't need to reinvent the wheel and make it about your business all the time. You just need to say, is it supportive of something already happening? Nice. A, is it actionable? So is this something that you can take action on right now? Whether it's activating your employees to do something, whether it's a volunteer day, whether it's giving money, whether it's just aligning your mission with something else that's going on, is it actionable in some way? The I in sale is it important? So obviously the answer should be yes, going through the brainstorming process, but I ask this to say, where's the meaning, right? Like, is it transformative in some capacity, especially in the way that you're going to be supporting it?
Right.
And then the L, which is the most important, is there longevity? And I said this before, but we can't just tell stories for the sake of telling stories. And if you're committing to social impact work in any capacity, it can't be just for a moment. It needs to be woven throughout your entire brand story. So when we ask, is there longevity? It's not just how long will people care? It's how long are you willing to invest in this work? And if you've answered those 4 questions, then you're ready to set sail with your social impact mission. And part of that playbook then walks you through how you use that to amplify the story, right? Because it's not just, okay, now I know what I want to make an impact in, but now how do I do it? And so we walk you through that as well. It's on goodpress.io/GP free. If you want to link that for your listeners,
absolutely.
It's a great resource just to start.
Yeah, we will definitely have that as a link in the show notes and also on my website and my newsletter. So I appreciate the acronym, and it's easy to remember that, I think. And if it doesn't have those 4 things, then it's probably not a strategy you want to implement.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, well, so what are some of the changes you've seen with your clients when they start working with you? Perhaps they come and they want to make an impact, right? And you help draw it out of them. And have you seen, for instance, your candle client or other clients go from that more localized impact to being able to be seen and heard on a broader stage?
Yeah, I think that's what we're always growing into, is giving our clients a platform. And so that's something they have to buy into and be excited about is, do you want to be seen as a thought leader in your space? Because using the candle client as an example, you're no longer a candle maker, right? Like, you could be a speaker. You're inspirational on so many more levels. And so the changes that I'm seeing is just that confidence build. And it is a journey to get there, because people don't typically set out to tell their story. They set out to sell something. So that's the toughest hurdle to overcome. But walking through the process together, I do see their confidence just build and their business boom because of it. Like, when you are able to lean into and tell a story that is uniquely yours, that just oozes through your being. And customers feel that. It makes their marketing more meaningful. It makes their sales more meaningful. And it gives them the opportunity to tell their story on those bigger stages because they know what it is that they're trying to do and say.
Mm-hmm. In this day and age, I know there's so many changes on the digital marketing side of things, with third-party cookies going away, email servability changing, all these other, the algorithms, like what's hot, what's not. And PR, though, is something that's steadfast. And there are some changes. Obviously, now we have podcasts. We have a lot more online publications. But I'd love to hear a little bit about how you decide what the right platforms are for your clients. If you create broad plans for them, if you have more of a learn to crawl and then walk and then run approach, and what that looks like.
Yeah, on the local level, I think it's a little bit easier to feel like you just break out into a sprint, right? Because you have those relationships. People are a little bit more comfortable with that local media take. Yeah. They're willing to tell their story. They've seen other people that they know potentially tell their story on this platform. So there's more comfortability. I think that it is a crawl and then a walk for most, because we do a lot of thought leadership training, and I know it's their story and they have the capacity to share it. But to start small and say, okay, these are the things, these are the core messages that you really need to dial in, because it's represented across all your platforms, right? There's that continuity. And I think that's why PR is so meaningful, is you never have to follow the trends. And it's really not about going viral. It's about amplifying what you're saying and selling everywhere else. So you're not ever having to create anything new. It's just getting that comfortability to tell the story on whatever platform. For us right now, podcasts are it. I'm sure that you're familiar with this, of course, but we're seeing consumers point to podcasts as their kind of guru for how they make decisions and a huge consumer impact on all fronts. So podcasts are our focus right now for a lot of the clients that I get to work with, but there's always that local news leverage that's great for local businesses selling specific products in their region.
Oh yeah, definitely. And do you require, because I know sometimes somebody says they want PR, but they balk at signing a longer term contract. Now, obviously you have a really great process in place where they have the 3 sessions and then you work from there to create the plan. So do you have people who object to, if you say you need to sign for 3, 6, 9, 12 months?
Yeah. I do say that they need to sign for 3 months. And I think that as long as folks understand every business is different, which means every relationship with any journalist, storyteller, publication, you name it, has to be reinvented. I can make as many relationships as I can, but if you come in with a really unique product offering and we find a really unique angle of your story, we need time to curate those relationships to find the best platform for you. So people are not always excited about a 3-month contract. I understand the risk. Of course, they're feeling like, well, how do I sign up for something when I haven't seen the outcome yet? Like, how do I know that this is right for me? But I'm so confident that it is. And I'm sure that in all your conversations with publicists understand this, PR isn't going anywhere. And it's the most effective way to borrow audiences. And with the chaos that is social media and the rat race that is trying to keep up with the trends and trending audio, writing the right caption, writing the right hooks, it's a critical piece of the marketing puzzle, but it's exhausting. And PR is what gives business owners, especially, that opportunity to borrow audiences to grow their influence in the most natural way. All they have to do is tell their story.
Yeah, phrasing that, borrowing audiences, that is so perfect. And not only that, you're talking about creating content for your clients or repurposing content. It adds so much value to that because you can take an interview and you create backlinks and you create social media posts and so much more material.
You're my girl. You get it. Yes. You get it.
I do get it. But I also have found sometimes you work with somebody for 3 months and then 6 months later, somebody that you pitched finally reaches out, right? And so I think that's really important for the listeners who are considering working with a publicist or thinking about starting their PR journey to understand. It's not always that we're going to get an immediate response. We might get some really great hits, but then there might be some people who are holding on to that email until they have the right story.
Right. And I think too, it's the patience to tell the story to the right people at the right time.
Right.
And if you can hang on to that patience, the benefit is going to increase tenfold because things like that don't go away. Those backlinks that you're talking about, they live forever. They're in your arsenal forever.
Yeah.
Social media is a little bit more fleeting. And so while it might feel like that's a good place to invest because it's more immediate success, it maybe doesn't have the longevity that you're craving or looking for. So patience is a virtue.
Yeah. Where do you see Good Press going into 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, we have a lot of big plans for 2024. We go one-on-one with clients. And I think for me, what I'd love to see Good Press evolve into is the Good Press Club, which is where we're at on socials, is that club element. And everyone always asks me, what's the club? But I really see an opportunity to create kind of a media anchor where business owners and folks that are looking for good press in their own right can come together. So I think there's going to be a lot more community building, a lot more online resources, a lot of ways to connect with other people who might be utilizing the Good Press services to, again, just borrow audiences and increase influence. So I'm hoping that this grows in a really meaningful way. But for now, we are happy working one-on-one with clients and just kind of changing the scope of marketing with that impact focus.
Yeah, and I think it's always great when you can bring other people who are trying to form impact together and help them create that bigger impact and also help them figure out how to collaborate with each other, which is also, I know, something that you always are looking for, those connection points.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you want to share that we haven't covered about the world of PR, what people need to look out for? Or, are you open for clients right now? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think that just like my piece of advice would be if you have a passion, there's a need to run with it. And so if there's even just a seed that's been planted where you're like, I run this business, but I think that there's more, don't be afraid to invest in it. I think that so many people that I'm talking to, they feel it. They know what their passion is. They're excited. and then they stall. And so I'd just say, run with it, take a chance, lean into a bigger story, because your business is made for so much more. And it's easy to get there if you're willing to commit. And if you need a little bit of help along the process, yes, we are open for clients. We're just at goodpress.io online. So folks can access us there, set up a discovery call. I would love to chat with anyone who's even just a little bit interested in starting their journey into social impact PR and having those conversations.
Oh, fantastic. And Lindsey, I wanted to ask, you did mention, obviously, SAIL, the acronym, and a quote about sailboats being safe in the harbor. Do you have another quote or favorite quote or mantra, words of wisdom that inspire you every day?
I think the one that just is always sitting with me is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I think that is what's, I was going to say guided my sales, but then we're really on the sales. That's what's motivated me to find a way to pair my love of marketing with impact, because the way that I do one thing is the way I'm going to show up and do everything. And if heart is what I claim I have, I'm going to pour it into everything I do.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. This has been so inspirational. And I think you've given a lot of hope to everybody out there that in this world, when they're trying to figure out their marketing mix, that PR is a fantastic strategy. It's one that's not going to go away. It's not going to change with the tides or what's, hot or not for the trends. It will always be the backbone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. It has been such a gift to chat with you.
Yes. And thank you to the audience for watching or listening to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. And I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing expert to help make your journey in your business a little more successful and effortless. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.